My name is Björk, and I'm here to talk about Stonemilker on my album Vulnicura.
You're listening to Song Exploder. My name is Rishikesh Hirway. In January 2015, Björk released Vulnicura. She described it as a complete heartbreak album. And in November, she released Vulnicura Strings, a companion album that stripped away the electronics. In this episode, Björk breaks down the making of both the original version of Stonemilker as well as the strings version. She traces her writing and recording of the track, her collaboration with electronic producer Arca, and her reasons for wanting to make a second version. This episode is sponsored by Hover, the best way to register and manage a domain name. They believe in the power of a good idea, and ideas need homes. Create a home for your next big idea by going to hover.com and using the code SONGEXPLODER at checkout. You'll save 10% off your first purchase. Now, here's Björk talking about her song Stonemilker.
It's about someone who's trying to get emotions out of another person. The whole song is emotionally about wanting clarity, wanting simplicity, and talking to someone who wants things to be really complex and foggy and unclear. And you're saying, okay, I've got clarity, so, want it or not. So it's like sort of celebrating simplicity and clarity. I was walking on a beach and I was kind of walking back and forth, and the lyrics kind of came along kind of without me really editing them. The strength of this album really is just simplicity and, this kind of like thinking out loud feeling. And I shouldn't be too clever. It would work against it. So I kind of just went with the first words that actually came. Probably the most obvious lyrics I've ever written. I actually wrote a whole nother lyric to the song, which was really maybe a bit too clever for its own good. But something in me just said, no, don't touch it. It has to be like almost clumsy or naive. That's sort of the strength and the weakness of the song at the same time. I'm mostly a singer, but I think the way I sing, I usually wait for a day where I'm kind of probably more impulsive than other days in one way or another. So when I sing, I'll go to this place where it's more similar to when I'm doing a concert. I will not have so much of my brain in there. I'll just like warm up my voice, have a coffee, and I'll just jump in the deep end where you're more a performer. But I think more and more, ever since I got my laptop 15 years ago, probably the biggest part of me as a musician is the editor. I probably spend like 90% of my time making music editing. If it's editing vocals, editing beats, editing instruments. I think that's a very big part of my work now. So that's also another side. Who that sentence is there and the reverb is cut there just to show, what happens if you are closed. If you cut down chances, it's a certain closing a door there. And sometimes you show sonically something emotional.
Who has shut down the chances?
The melody is so simple and the words are so simple. I actually waited for the right microphone because it had to be really like that you hear every detail in the voice. So it's like a really high definition human that's there. After I'd written the songs and I was starting working on the beats, I met Alejandro Arca, and it was a magical relationship, and he was obviously so talented. So I decided to take a back step and for it to be a handshake between me and him. We sat next to each other and we talked about every single thing. Because I'd already written all the songs. With Stonemilker, it was very obvious that that song is very simple. So we didn't really need a crazy beat thing going on. It just had to be really supportive of the song and almost acoustic, like it's a symphony orchestra playing and the beat would come from the kettle drum or something, like just a very soft support, which Alejandro provided. So I would sit down at a keyboard and just work out the chords. And then when I'm ready with the chord structure, because I knew it would be for strings, I would take it to violins, violas, cellos, because I kind of wanted a lot of it to be in the strings. We actually saved it till last, and I did several days of recording the strings. I had 30 players, and then I would do 2 sets of arrangements, so basically there are in theory 60, because it needed that sort of panoramic feeling to have that sort of smooth, cream-like perfection. For me, it was very important with Stonemilker that the strings were kind of cyclical, this chord cycle that kind of gives you this feeling. It can go on in circles and gives you this feeling of equilibrium, like the person who's singing the song is showing some sort of harmony to someone, as an example. I layered several recordings of the strings to be like a tower of equilibrium that you are standing in, like a monument of equilibrium. And you're standing in the middle of it and you're small and it's huge and it just goes circle and circle and you feel very safe and secure. And that's sort of the clarity that I would want to try to offer emotionally in the song. And the strings are kind of the tool I have to try to make this kind of cradle. So I spent a lot of time going through all the takes and all the mics and try to make this kind of tight woven net that each string instrument was equally important because they have all these kind of sub-melodies that you could hear them all, but it would still not be a solo, that it was like this balance of this kind of woven string tower that was keeping you safe. Because there was so much work and so much about the textures in the strings that I thought it deserved a version where the beats are not shadowing the string textures, that there was another version would exist, and that I would get not just the strings functioning as a whole, but also have solo violins to do more and to kind of indulge more in the microphone textures. Also, I think it's a question of like tempo. Like I feel the main version of Wilnikura has more drive. You know, the beats obviously give it more energy. But I felt there was another version of Wilnikura with just the strings where it's more slower pace, you know, more like you reading a book at home, you know, like lying outside in the moss looking at the sky. I think Stonemilker, it's a one big question, really. You're asking someone a question, suggesting something, but you don't want to push too hard, trying to, in the most harmonious way possible, trying to prove a point. So it's sort of a very gentle suggestion, because I think staying emotionally open, it's a choice, you know? I think it's equally hard for all of us, and we're just all doing our best, but I think there's also a choice, you know? Do you want to try and then maybe fail half of the time and then succeed half of the time or whatever your odds are? Or is it your choice to not even try?
And now, here's Stonemilker by Björk in its entirety. Visit songexploder.net for more information on Björk and this song, including links to buy both versions of Stonemilker. On the site, you'll also find the interactive 360-degree music video for the song. This episode is sponsored by Turntable Lab, an online music store. Since 1999, they've specialized in selling turntables and special edition vinyl. You can find vinyl LPs from a lot of the artists featured right here on Song Exploder, including Björk, Wilco, Spoon, and more. Go to turntablelab.com/songexploder to see all the records they have from past Song Exploder guests, and to get a special discount for Song Exploder listeners. And if you're in New York, check out the brick and mortar store they have in the East Village. Song Exploder is sponsored by Lagunitas Brewing Company, who believe brewing is like a long-form symphony, with melody, thematic development and variation, recapitulation, mutation, and restatement, all telling the story of their beer, long and slow over time. Lagunitas Brewing Company. Beer speaks. People mumble. Next time on Song Exploder, Grammy nominee for Best New Artist, Courtney Barnett. This episode marks the end of 2 full years of Song Exploder. If you want to share your thoughts on this episode or on the podcast in general, you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Song Exploder. You can find past and future episodes of the podcast and rate it or leave a review at itunes.com/songexploder. Song Exploder is a proud member of Radiotopia from PRX. Special thanks this episode to Krista Williams, Carla Sachs, and Christian Coons. My name is Rishi K. Shirway. Thanks for listening.
We drive to a house in Preston. We see police arresting a man with his hand in a bag.
Radiotopia.